Yes.
Um,
Correct.
and when the subject came to my attention, I was really pleased to know that social work had embedded in its very core subject the issue of climate change. Uh, and I'm really happy to hear from Medina how far in terms of approaches, methods, and contents things have evolved very positively, and her answer to my interrogation a few moments ago is quite enlightening for me, and we have a lot maybe to learn and to share together. Um, but my concern about climate change is that somehow we tend to place emphasis on the aspect of change, but not really in terms of action. So now to follow what the UN would advise us is as regards the SDGs, it would be on the one hand, to take cognizance, to accept the fact, to stop being in denial of what is called climate change itself. But on the other hand, the important thing is to look for the actions. And we all know that this has been the crux of so many difficulties, be it at the level of states or at the level of the community. But still, a lot of work has been done, a lot of proposals have been made, uh, but uh, my point is all about the cultural perspective when we talk about climate action. And for this, I would refer to the UNESCO Convention on Intangible Cultural Heritage, which has, at its very beginning, proposed some major domains through which humanity needs to get involved in a better way. And this convention, uh, interesting thing about it is that in parallel to the Intergovernmental Conference, which happens every year, we have what we call the NGO Forum, which is composed of accredited NGOs from all over the world, um, which are involved in safeguarding practices in terms of intangible cultural heritage. But then the interesting thing about this NGO forum, just as the whole convention and the whole committee, intergovernmental committee is concerned, the NGO forum has that possibility of harnessing and canvassing uh, the world community about all issues that have a bearing on the life and livelihood of people. And in fact, climate change and climate action has been one of those themes that have been thoroughly canvassed. And to the extent that last year, we had a working group that came forward at an extraordinary General Assembly, whereby they proposed indeed a declaration on the safeguarding of intangible cultural heritage for climate action in the Intangible Cultural Heritage NGO Forum. So for me, I think that is a perspective that can pay that can produce more results, because indeed we are talking about the real life of communities. We are talking about those 5 domains I mentioned, which have to do with orality, for example, with language, with storytelling, with riddles, and all those things to make sense of what Megna indeed told us, has to do both with the contents, the approaches, and the methods that are pertinent, that are meaningful when we talk about climate actions or climate change. So orality is something with which we have to work on in order to make people really aware of their environment. And one of the issues about orality is that in many countries, we do have a big issue with the language policy, because language, native languages, indigenous languages are not fully recognized in the system. So how can you expect that education, learning, in terms of acquiring the correct information, how can you imagine that this is effective if this is not done in the mother tongue? So this is how culture becomes central, becomes crucial to any sort of action, including climate action. Now we have as well the use of creative means in favoring, in sensitizing. And then it has to do with the second domain that we would call the performing arts domain, whereby whatever the communities are living, whatever words that they say, can be, for example, translated into poetry, into stories, into songs, into musicals. This has been our experience in an organization where I'm a volunteer in Mauritius, whereby kids learn to use orality up to the point of transforming it into performing arts. And this has had a big impact on the whole Mauritian population. And then we have as well the issue of nature and the universe, which is the third domain of the ICH convention. And it says everything. It says everything because it put emphasis on indigenous knowledge about nature and the universe. We all know how performing all those types of knowledges have shown in the past. Humanity has lived more on nature and the indigenous knowledge of the universe than on modern medicine. So come back to rediscover the virtues of nature and the universe, to see how far it has been productive and it can spearhead actions in favor of climate actions, remedial actions. We have nothing to lose. The communities, I mean, have nothing to use. But of course, the big pharmaceutical enterprises have a lot to lose when we talk about the use of traditional medicine, for example. This is how it becomes important, it becomes interesting for us to rely on nature and the universe, but with that cultural perspective. It is culture. It is all about getting people to get back to nature, to respect nature, to give in credit to to nature, to get inspired by good practices of our ancestors, and this really can make a difference. And I think that it has already made a big difference in many places. And then we shouldn't think that what I'm talking about is just empirical studies. There are a lot of research that have been done. There is a lot of documentation there, here, and everywhere that would prove to us the effectiveness of culture when it comes to, for example, biodiversity, biocultural diversity. And this is the way forward. And we have as well noted that whenever there has been harm to cultural diversity, then the environment as well has suffered. Researchers are there to show how far this is true. Then we have as well social practices that have to do with the way people handle very dreadful situations. But then we are now in front of those dreadful situations. So, and we are not equipped, we are not really given the tools, both physical and emotional, to face very difficult situations. And those practices, including play, for example, can be of great pertinence, can be really effective for people to face those very difficult situations. When we talk about intangible cultural heritage, it has to do with traditional craft, for example. And traditional craft is a domain where we use recycled materials. We reuse, we recreate, we recycle, we rethink. So those are the advantages of relying on this type of elements in view of providing momentum to climate action. So that would be the major part of what I had to say. But then I would just refer everybody to that declaration. I had the opportunity to contribute to that declaration, which was passed last year itself. It can be accessed on the ICH NGO Forum website of the UNESCO. And I really feel that it can be really enlightening. It can be a source of finding the right argumentation of what I would call the cultural perspective. I really appreciate what Meghna has been telling us. My contribution today has been some sort of a supplement, a complement to what Meghna has said. Thank you for your attention.